Hey guys, I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week, we're speaking with the CEO of Infomineo, Martin Tronquit. He was just giving me a lesson in French pronunciation. I hope I didn't butcher it. They are a brainstorm services company supporting their clients through four main areas: business research, export networking, graphic design, and business translation. So today we're going to talk about how he's built that company up to 200 people and the lessons behind building that business. The industry of services and outsourcing and the knowledge economy, I guess, that we're in, and a few trends and things that Martin and his team have come up with, and new business interests as well. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning.
Where are you now? Are you in Dubai?
Yes, I'm in Dubai. Sunny Dubai.
Sunny Dubai. And how are things going? How's the year going? How's business?
It's a great year so far. To be fair, even better than last year. Last year, our company did more than 30% of growth. And this year, we are just short of 50% of growth. And everything, all the indicators are in the green. So we'll cross fingers that it lasts as much as possible.
That's a fast-growing business. 50% growth this year is a fast-growing business. Can you tell us when you set up the business and what exactly is Infomineo?
Sure. Let me go back a little in time. So obviously you will have said and I heard that I'm French. I studied in France. I then started as a consultant at the Boston Consulting Group, where I spent 7 years of my life. And as a consultant, I felt that there were a number of services that you needed to be a good consultant to save time, essentially to be better at what you were doing. And some of them were related to data research, for example. As a consultant, you want to make demonstrations, but if you have hard facts to make a demonstration, it's stronger. And you have those research services internally, but they never had the time to help you. The team was too small. And then you started seeing some suppliers out of India that would do this type of work. And I like the idea of outsourcing because it didn't have to be people in your team that were doing the research, but I had a lot of issues with working with India, with the time difference, etc. I had to be very, very limited in terms of complexity, so they delivered. Another service that I was using was graphic design to do my slides. I'm really poor at design. I have no sense of aesthetics whatsoever, and still I spent nights and nights moving boxes on PowerPoint and choosing colors and so on, whereas I could have outsourced that. And the idea of Infomineo stemmed from that we could provide a higher level of service on these specific requirements from nearshore locations. You would be in the same time zone as a client. You would have people that have critical thinking and so on, and essentially just an incremental business versus what existed before. So that's where the idea came from.
Interesting. So did you go straight into that from Boston Consultancy Group? You left your job and you set up this business?
Correct, yes. And
what year was that, and how's it gone?
So it started in 2011, so just over 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. And I started initially in Morocco because I had started the BCG office in Morocco. I met my partner Hamza in Morocco as well. He was at McKinsey and having the exact same challenges as I did. So we started the business in Morocco, starting picking up rather quickly, and we started growing 10, 20, 30 people. And then we wanted to open an office in Egypt to be Egypt the hub for servicing the Middle East and Morocco for servicing Europe. And then you need to have a holding company. And when you need to have a holding company, you need to be in a location that is business friendly for these type of things. And Dubai was a very natural destination to do that because I was spending already a lot of time in Dubai because a lot of decision makers were there. I was doing a lot of my time on business development. So we set up an office here to be the holding. And so we have Dubai, Morocco, Egypt, and now we just opened a new offices in Mexico because we're now covering the Americas as well. And now the team has reached roughly 200 people today.
Amazing. Well done. Great success story. Your clients, are they bigger consultancy groups that need this work done in a localized way? And if not, and also who are your other clients?
Sure. So yeah, obviously, I mean, we were coming from that area. It was very natural for us to have our former employers as our first clients. So I'm not allowed to disclose the names of our clients, but yes, many of the very top strategy consultancies and other consultancies are our clients because they need data all the time, and somehow they prescribe our service to their own end clients, right? They integrate our product like you would buy a Dell computer and you still be a client of Intel. In a way, Infomineo will be Intel to the consultancies. And beyond that, we now have more than 40 of the Fortune 500 companies as clients, with names like, I don't know, Michelin and Richemont and a lot of big groups. And we also have a few regional clients. So we work for a few public entities in the UAE, in Saudi, and so on. So it's a quite diversified portfolio of clients. And by the way, what is interesting, it's the very global one. So we happen to operate from the region, but our revenue, I mean, most of our invoices go to the US, where the headquarters of many of our clients are. The people that work with us on a daily basis would be based in probably 30, 40 different countries, not specific in the region. So it's very interesting how it's super open from a geographical perspective.
Amazing. And the topics that I mentioned at the start, what's the breakdown of the services you provide? Do you break it down in terms of the demand, in terms of business research, business translation or transformation, and graphic design? Is there something? How do these clients approach you? Are they saying, hey, this is a new type of service that we never knew we could outsource before? Or is it, let's just do consultancy in a different way?
So I'll give you two angles. One, how are those services consistent? The idea is you have data research. You will need to find information, then you need to analyze that information, and then you need to communicate it. And to communicate it, you could do it with visual clues, or you could do it with language. Today, we have 3 of the 4 boxes. We have research, and it's roughly 80% of our business. It's where we started, and that's where our reputation comes from. Then the second one would be data analytics. All these companies have a lot of data. They need to make sense of the data, clean their databases, derive insights, and so on. This is something we're going to launch later this year. And then on the communication aspect, you have the visual aspect, which is graphic design. So we have now 15 people doing that, and it's growing like crazy, like wildfire, because you need to visualize. You can have the best insights. If you cannot communicate these insights and people don't understand them, all the work that you've done before is useless. And the second is the element regarding language. Today we do it from an angle of translation, because if you don't speak to people in the language that they understand, then again it's useless. But we are going to be adding value in terms of how you formulate things, how do you make synthesis, how do you write a long paper of 20 pages, you summarize it in 5 or in 3 for communication, and so on and so forth. And with that, we'll have a full range of services around all that data and insights value chain.
Okay, amazing, interesting. And are you typically, the business model, are you set up like a services, knowledge economy services industry? Do you have FTEs? Do you make margins on top of that? Do you pitch for business? Do you staff teams and accounts and resource appropriately? Or is it more of a project basis?
So it's a very interesting question. I just realized I didn't answer the second part of your previous questions, which was then I'm just forgetting it. But anyway, let me go to that one. No, the model is really interesting. It's on the one hand, it's very high value add services. On the other hand, it's still an outsourcing business. What we do is more than 80% of our business is we call retainer. So basically, we create dedicated teams for our clients. So the clients will always work with the same people. They will have capacity with us, and they use it exactly as they want. And that level of integration is the only way you can go to that level of value add. If you were working on a project by project basis in a very transactional way, every time you start a project, you have to understand the new client, the context, their specific expectations, and so on. You waste a lot of time getting adjusted. When you're working day in, day out as just an extension to a client team, then the level of value that you provide is extremely high. And from a business model perspective, what is great with a retainer is that you have recurring cash flow. It's not like every year you start and you have to do it again. Here we have this relationship. The clients pay their bill every month. We are very reasonable from a cost perspective because we know people are going to be utilized extremely effectively. And it's the basis and the foundation for our growth. So when we started 2021, that was already secured. So our business development team is fighting for growth, not for starting from zero, which is an interesting model.
Exactly. Okay, fascinating. I think the second question before was still around the types of services that you offer and the makeup of your business. You said 80% is research and then data, and there might have been something more to that.
No, it's 80% research. Then we have translation, roughly 10, and graphic design, roughly 10. But we are going to balance that with research going down to probably 50%, translation and language services around 20, and graphic design around 30 until we launch data analytics. But that's the services as we see them today. It will broaden. The idea really for our clients is make or buy. What do I want to do? What do I want to outsource? When you think about other businesses, you're Apple. You are great at product design. You are great at marketing and sales. You have no idea how to manufacture. You chose to completely outsource your manufacturing. For many businesses, the questions are the same in services. Even a consultancy where the research is at the core of the business would choose that, they prefer to focus their energy on the consulting staff that are spending time with the client, making recommendations and so on. The researcher will do some internally. They'll also leverage the best resources out there. And what is interesting as well on that model of nearshoring that we use with our offices in Morocco, Egypt, and in Mexico is we help our clients tap in talent pools that are otherwise untapped. And think about the Middle East, for example. Access to talent is really hard. So you have local talent, but you need to put a lot of training. There's a lot of competition. They tend to be quite expensive. Or you bring in foreign talent and you have them travel to the Middle East, therefore get the local level of pricing. What we help them do is to say, okay, you have a certain number of services you want to operate. We'll operate them for you from a location that is next door, where people speak the same languages at a cost level, which is competitive versus hiring yourself. And you don't have the headache to manage this. So it's a very interesting balance where you have the best of both worlds.
Okay, interesting. I really like how, you focus on countries and areas that haven't been necessarily focused on by, say, the global consultancy groups. But one of the reasons why they don't focus on it is because their clients are coming from another economy with higher GDPs, with more ability to pay for services, right? I think that's one of the when an economy grows, there's more need for services in many different areas. And in the past, they would have used, as you described, an outsourced model in India, etc., and built big units and big buildings and infrastructure around that. And the system was kind of built around that. But you've kind of spent more time where they can't, in Morocco and Egypt. However, the economies in Morocco and Egypt aren't that big yet. So your clients are coming from Europe, the US, faster growing economies in the Middle East, as opposed to coming from Morocco and Egypt. Is that correct?
That's very true. That's very true. So you have that arbitration of clients that need resources, that are willing to pay premium prices for your services, and you're delivering for platforms when you can access more than cheap, but large amounts of talent. When you're in Cairo, it's 20 million people. There's a lot of very talented, well-trained people here. So when you want to hire, you can find people. This year in Infomineo, we're going to hire north of 100 people. That's starting to be quite large, and next year probably more than 150. If we were in countries where there's massive competition on talent, that would be a massive challenge. But now with Cairo and Casablanca and Mexico, we have access to talent pools where, and by the way, one thing that I love literally about this business, one is a job creation. If I had stayed in consulting, it would be still super interesting, but I would not have made a difference. Here, I can say to myself, and together with the team we've built, we've created 200 jobs. And what is interesting is these people, to get the same type of opportunities they have today at Infomineo, would probably have needed to go to other countries, and there would be a loss for their countries. And emerging markets like Morocco and Egypt and Mexico and many others, they need an elite. They need people that are well trained. They need people that work in companies where ethics are at the core, where corruption is banned, where there is gender equality between men and women, because they are the future of their countries. And I'm really, really proud to give opportunity to these people through that model of brain showing that we've developed.
That's amazing. It's nice to hear you say that as well, because I think that's one of the key things, how you've described it, is what motivates entrepreneurs. It's not always about profits or success. Entrepreneurs generally are in a positive way, positive about business and the good benefits of business for providing jobs and stimulating economies as well. So it's nice to hear it said like that as well, that you can create, the entrepreneurs can create livelihoods and jobs for people. Shifting a little bit and on the topic, but I've heard of the problem that you've fixed, found a solution for 11 years ago. I've heard of it from consultant friends with Accenture, Schlumberger, these bigger groups. And, it's specific. Let's take that bit about the slides and the graphics. And I've heard them say, well, what if we set this up and did it better? But typically, it's those consultancy groups that need that help with graphics. And then another type of service. So you provided this solution. Another industry that needs help with graphics was the sort of advertising creative industry and the help with PowerPoints and things like that. And a solution to that, one of the popular growing companies is a SaaS-based solution. There's one called Canva per se, right? And so at what point do you go, hey, I'm going to do what I know I was doing to solve this problem because I understand the business model, or actually I'm going to provide a different solution to this and have a different business model that might need venture funding, but has got a SaaS, a software as a service sort of tech valuation to it. Was that a question that you asked yourself, or did that ever come up?
No, that's a very good question. I mean, you can take the example of SaaS when it comes to graphic design. You can take the example of automated translation when it comes to translation. You can take the example of more and more databases being available on the market when it comes to research. So somehow you might say, okay, if what I sell is time, where is my space? And our answer to that is we want to be the people that use the technology, not the guys that provide the technology. And it's very respectable to create those technologies, but you will always have people that make use of that. So in translation, there's plenty of tools. They just save you time, make you more efficient, make your quality of work better. In design, it's the same. We use all of these tools. Obviously, we use Canva and we use many others, but they are resources for us to do the work. But I truly believe that you will always have a human being to understand the client's issue, to derive a solution, and then they're going to be, we call that tech enablement. Technology is an enabler for us. So we spend a lot in tech. We use tech. We use, by the way, not only tech, but all the resources like databases and so on. But as a company, our choice is to be the people and to sell the people, because that's what motivates us. And again, my core motivation is really about job creation. This year, we're creating more than 10 jobs a month. And I prefer to feed people and families and so on that machines. But again, it's pretty respectable. But I think there will always be a space. The one thing that is really important is to keep at a level of value add that is high. If you go in terms of, okay, I want to do the basic stuff, I want to be cheap, etc., you're going to be destroyed by automation and machines and so on. If you keep on the high level of value add, always about the creativity, about the ambiguous questions and so on, then the machine will take a long time before they get to where you are. And interestingly, if we have competition, and we don't really have direct competition, they would be in India and their prices would be 40% cheaper than ours. But when we can compare with our clients, we know that we grow much faster than they do. And it's paradoxical, because you say, why am being more expensive, why am I growing faster? Because we're at a level of value add that is superior to them. So we are not replaced by other resources. On the contrary, we're more and more integrated with our clients and adding value.
Amazing. I really like how you articulated that as well, that it shows that you didn't want to pivot into what sounds attractive. You see it in the stock market, you see these SaaS things, but you want to be the people who use the tools. And I think that was really well explained, and probably one of the reasons why you've stayed on this track. You said no competitors, but I'm sure there are, right? There's a company called Alpha Sites. Would they not do something similar to what you do?
So it's interesting. No, Alpha Sites, it's a different business model. They do expert interviews, so they connect you to people who have the answers. They will not do research for you. They will not produce deliverables. So they will connect you to knowledge. It's a great business model. It's an amazing company. They've been growing tremendously, but they're not direct competition. There is a different approach to get something that could be similar. Want is a profile of 10 companies, market size. You will ask Infomineo and not Alpha Sites. If on the contrary, you want to be kind of an expert of a specific process in a factory, then you better go with Alpha Sites that will connect you for a 1 hour call with that specific expert. So it's very complementary. And everybody would say, I'm in a niche market, I don't have competition. Of course, we have competition. The basic competition is I'm not simply doing it. I'm taking my decision without the proper data. My presentation is good enough as it is, and so on. It's just like, I don't care. The other would be to say, there's this thing, I'm going to ask the intern to do it. It's cheap, he's here, or she is here. And then, yes, but then you are very unlikely to get the level of quality that you expect. Then you can also work with these Indian companies that are very respectable competitors. But I think the level of value add that you have is different. Most of our competitors, our clients work with these type of companies and with us as well. They see us as a complement. And by the way, I think in our generation in business, it's not cutthroat competition like the former generation has. It's either them or us. I love to be in a situation where I'm very clear where I add value, where we don't add value, and to be positioned where we add value and to be excellent at that and not at the basic stuff. So if you want to go on a website and copy paste hundreds of cells in an Excel sheet, will be way too expensive for that. And by the way, our staff will not like it. So I'm happy that we are too expensive for that, so we don't do it. And there are companies that are going to do that for much cheaper, and good for them, good for us. We're all happy.
Amazing. So I think you said it like a mistake that your competitors are your clients, but in one way, clients who don't have the behavior, who don't know of your services or your value, that's where the market is for you. That's the competition, right? And listening to you explaining your services, well, I'm already thinking of 2 or 3 things that my business or some boards I sit on could use this services, because rather than, as you said, trying to do it yourself, hope someone else does it that would help your industry, or give it to the intern or whatever. So to that point, how do you change a behavior? How do you need the economies to grow? Do you need, or do you need to market yourselves, or is it word of mouth? How do you get people to start using Infomineo?
That's a very good question. I guess it gets to the second question we had forgotten before, which is how do you market yourself and how do you go to market? Yes, I think the mission we have is to educate. People are not conscious that these services exist. Once they do, I mean, we monitor our KPIs and our sales funnel. The conversion rates are outstanding. When we have a meeting with a client, 1 chance out of 2 they become a client. It's crazy. It never happens. Why? Because what we do is super relevant. The question is how we get these people to be aware of us. So initially, we've always done very proactive outreach, and the guys that would like those services. There are people that are very analytical, data-driven. So you look at MBAs, you look at ex-consultants, investment bankers, all these type of professions, and you approach them and say, you do it today yourself, and that's what you spend your time between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. How about you got some help? And and that works very well. What we're trying to do as well now is to do on marketing something that is really fascinating. We are inventing a new word and a new concept that we call brain shoring. The idea of brain shoring is to say you're going to outsource not just muscle, not just execution, you're going to outsource judgment, brain, creativity, and so on. And I really believe that's a new industry, and we are writing at this stage a white paper about it. And that is going to be out there. It's not Infomineo owning the same brain shoring. We are actually trying to get other companies to recognize themselves as this concept. So if we can put it out there, people are aware that brain sharing exists, then they look for brain showing companies. When they have a problem, they will think that there is a solution probably, and then we'll have much more incoming business. So that's the way I'm thinking about that.
Okay, fascinating. So it's a services-based industry. Did you need to raise funds, or how did you go about building the business? Is it private business? Is it privately backed, or how's the structure?
No, I mean, as a service business, you have to be a profitable business. When you sell time, so we never raised capital, never went into debt, none of that. So there are essentially three group of shareholders. I mean, there's my partner, myself, and we just gave 11% of the company to our employees. That's the only shareholders we have, the only constraints. And really, I have a lot of entrepreneur friends. I mean, I'm part of Endeavor in Dubai, which is a group of very successful entrepreneurs. And when I see all those that raised capital, they spend probably 30% of their time, raising capital and dealing with investors. I'm so lucky that I have to focus on my business. For me, the money that comes in the company is coming from clients that pay invoices every month, more so than investors that put money in. And again, because it's possible because of that business model. And maybe that's maybe an introduction to the second business we're doing. So because we focused a lot on the service and the fact that it's the constraints and opportunity it generates, we've started another business called Data Exchange, where here the model is different. It's still in the field of data, and the idea is that companies generate data. They don't do anything with it. It's a byproduct of their activity. It's an asset that they have. They have as assets, they have people, they pay people, they have investors, they pay their investors, they have brands and patents, they make value of it, and then have data, they do nothing with it. On the other end, there's plenty of problems that companies have that could be solved with data that is not that publicly available data, but that would be owned by a company. So an example I often take is if you're PepsiCo, you want to incentivize your sales force. The way you do it today is you look at their sales, and if they grow their sales, they're good and they get a bonus. But if the market is growing faster than the sales guy, he's not doing well. He's doing poorer than the market, but still you don't really know it, so you'll still incentivize the guy. A great way to incentivize a person would have to have the data from Carrefour and Lulu and all the coverage that he has, and see how he performs relative to Coke in terms of market share. That is a good sales guy. That the market is crashing minus 20%, but does minus 10. He has been amazing. And this data is out there, but today nobody has access to that data. Carrefour doesn't see the value in monetizing it. It's a different constraint, different business model. It's not going to be big. But if you have a company that specializes itself in trading that information, in extracting value for that information, then you have something new. And to the point you were saying about the funding, what we're trying to do is we have that cash generating business called Infomineo, and we channel the dividends back to that business that would need funding because you need to proactively invest. So we create our own ecosystem in the field of data with our two companies.
Amazing. I like how you described that as well in terms of the structure. So you're reinvesting in another model that typically would have needed funding, and you've done it that way. And also, it's really smart how you described the data part, that companies would like to get cash crudely from their data. They know they sit on data, but they maybe haven't visualized it. But if someone comes to them and says, here's some money, can I have your data? Not to mess up your business, or not to sort of, take private customer data away from you, but more in terms of you've actually got an asset, you've got something that you're generating that you can have a revenue stream for. But it's more enticing. Like if you came to me and said, hey, you've got all this data, per se, that like as a media business, that Facebook and Google already monetize our data, but there's other data that we have that we don't know how to monetize. So you're approaching it that way, and then you're monetizing it in another way.
Yes. And what is interesting in that business model is that you're not generating revenue, you're generating profits because you have no cost involved. So you have that asset. Data Exchange is going to generate $1 million of revenue for you. If you're Carrefour, $1 million of revenue is not very significant. But no, it's not revenue, it's bottom line. It's going to be $1 million of profits because you have zero expense involved. And it would be stupid not to do it. And that's the idea that we have to do that with all the companies that have this data that is valuable. The only thing is it takes time. Again, we are in a similar fashion as for Infomineo. We need to educate the market that these solutions exist. For data exchange, we need to also educate. And it takes time to generate revenue. But once it does, then there is this effect that it's very scalable. You do it for one use case, and then you multiply the use cases using the same methodology and approach. And what is interesting is the data is that you own the asset at some point. And when you do, you have something that is extremely valuable. So that's what we're focusing on.
But it won't be a software as a service. It won't be a marketplace. It still will be services where your team will capture this data and repackage it.
It would sell the time that we do work on the data. It would be the data itself. So obviously we're going to package it in a way that is useful, but it's going to be the same thing that multiple clients will buy. So it's a much more scalable business. What I love in a business like that is you have your asset. It costs you 100 to create. You sell it once at 100. You make zero profit. You sell it a second time, you make 50% of profit. You sell it a third time, you make 67% of profit. And it's a great thing. So you don't want to sell the time. So you have a few elements in that chain. You can trade the data as it is, even not touching the data. That is one, limited value add. Second, you can aggregate multiple sources of data to put it into perspective. You'd have the data from Carrefour, but also from Pada and others and so on. You aggregate, and there's much more value in the aggregation. And if you put that in perspective with the customer information or the behavior information you got from Etisalat and then so on, then you create something that is even more valuable. Then a third level would be to do analysis and transform that data into something that helps with decision making. That is not just a big set of information, but a dashboard, something that helps you make decisions. And then there is a point about advisory, how to help use the data. But the fourth one will never get into that because that's consulting as it happens. We know them well. They can use what we do on the upstream for their services, can extract a lot of value. We are very happy with that. The dashboarding / visual representation of the data, we can do it and we will do it because many clients are not sophisticated enough today so that they can use a data set and create insight from it. But it's going to be just a service that we have. But the core thing is really to monetize an asset.
Okay, fascinating. A couple of questions around your business related to this new product and new service in terms of growth. 200 people, another 100 people, and you've steadily grown it. You haven't grown at that rate in the first 11 years, so it seems like it's accelerating. Does that sort of accelerated growth create tensions and pressure points on core functions of the business that might crack? And are you conscious of that sort of speed? It sounds great and the revenue is going up, but that wasn't the speed that you were running at before. And how do you manage that trajectory?
Yeah. By the way, on the running, there's this compound effect. So we're not growing faster now than we've grown in the past, but when you go 50% from 10 people, you get to 15, so it's just that exponential effect that is fascinating. In the first 8 years of the company, we're creating pretty much 10 jobs a year. And now we are around, almost 100 a year because of that compound effect. And yes, it is becoming more difficult to scale because it's an offer and demand thing, right? You need to have the demand from the clients and then you need to have the offer. And the offer is what? You need to hire people. And to be able to hire more people, you need to hire recruiters. So a recruitment team is actually exploding in size because we if you want to hire twice as many people, you need to have twice as many recruiters. You don't have a lot of scale effect there. And then there's the ability to onboard people and train them. And here, the number of seniors we have is important. And here we're trying to fight as much as possible against attrition, because we need to keep the seniors because then they can inspire and train the others. So we're quite healthy here. And the second is you will have a limitation in your growth rate. So as we're approaching 50%, we're probably going to be 45 this year. We are at the limit in terms of our ability to onboard more people. And that's, 45% I'm happy. And and we might be at some point starting to say no to clients that we are not simply able to scale at the speed that we require to do that, and you'll need to wait a little, because in a business like that in services, the one only North Star is quality. If you do quality work, you create trust. If you create trust, you create desire, and if you create desire, you create business. So that's the one thing you do not want to compromise. I would not trade, growing at 70% instead of 50, if it's at the expense of quality, because in the long run it will not work. And by the way, being a sort of family-owned business, in the sense that we don't have investors, is nice in the sort of business, because you don't have pressure to grow at all costs. You rather build something one step at a time. And again, with that exponential effects of 50% this year is much less than 50% next year, much less than the year after, and you can get to solvents. And maybe to your point, by the way, you raised about the market size, the size of opportunity. Because it's about creating awareness about the service, I see zero limitation. We're not on a limited market. It's a global market, by the way. Our clients are coming from all over the world. With Mexico, we're now opening all the Americas to us. I think this business can scale to thousands and thousands of people. And it will, with that snowball effect, it will happen probably sooner than one would expect. We're 200. It's not a massive business yet, but in 2-3 years, 500, and then two more years in 1,000. So that's the business.
What's your revenue this year?
That's confidential. I'm not in a situation to say.
Well, you actually can. Private companies don't mean that they need to be private. They just mean they're privately owned. But I won't push. I knew I wouldn't get an answer. Thought I'd ask anyway. But thank you for sharing that.
That's right.
That's right. I think you kind of touched the second point I was going to ask about the services industry, because you mentioned about retention of employees and the growth. And I think we're not in an era of where services industry and marketing and consultancy is necessarily the hottest thing, right? Like there's been a big shift to venture backed and private equity and other types of models around profits and values and things like that. And one of the reasons is because services, as you introduce new departments and things, the margins creep down a little bit, and it's hard to manage the margins, and also hard to manage retention of people around services. It doesn't sound like you're shying away from it, but do you think that the benefits outweigh the pros outweigh the cons in terms of building a meaningful business, generating real revenue and real profits?
No, it's a very good question. I mean, you have services versus venture-backed type of businesses, and then you have within services, what do you want to do? Yes, I mean, I think it's very much depending on the temperament of people. Yeah, there are people that want to be in this venture-backed, high-paced, whatever, fail or win. Many people also want to build something. They want to build a career. They want to do something that they're genuinely interested about. And there's more of these people that one can think of. So I think it's just a matter of who the people are and what they're attracted to. Second, within services, there were phases in the 90s. My older brother needed to be an auditor. That was the one hot thing. And then you need to be a consultant. When I started, at BCG, that was the hot thing. I think that the realm of data today is hot. You need to understand where to find data, how to discriminate between crap and reliable information, and so on. It's a skill set that is extremely useful for everyone, for everything. So I think that the business we are in and what people learn at Infomineo is invaluable. So we are a company where we hire mostly young graduates. Some of them love the company, love the culture, make a career with us. Some others say, I've built something and I want to use it elsewhere. And our alumni are amazing. They are in all the best consultancies. They are at the World Bank. They are at the World Food Organization. They are in government. They are everywhere because they have learned fundamental skills that are great. Then about the point about attrition, retention, Interestingly, we are in cities and markets in Morocco and Egypt and Mexico where, working in a large company is not great. In most cases, the cultures of the companies, the degrees of ethics, the fact that there's very much top-down and organizations and so on. When you create an organization which is more modern in a way, where you have 55% of women and they're not discriminated, they have the same salaries, where there's the true listening to the people, where you survey them every week to understand how they feel and so on, you create an experience that is so different from the rest of the market that you can attract and retain people much better than other companies. I think our attrition rates, even though I would always love them to be lower than we are significantly lower than many other companies in those markets, because we approach them in a different way. So it obviously it's a challenge, but it's one that I'm not too concerned about, as long as you do the right thing.
That's again a good way of answering it. I think, when you talk about how consultancy groups approached this before outsourcing, they had a real problem with attrition because they didn't do not accusational, but it was always to do with a low price, right? And when there's a low price, then people, their loyalty and their belonging isn't there, and their comfort level on that income isn't there. So once you increase that, you don't see people jumping for 2% increments and things like that. And if you do the right thing, then you can create that sort of indigenous company at a local level, which it sounds like you're doing. And to that point, and coming to the close, in the markets that you're in, Martin, and where you're based, you moved to Dubai, you relocated to Dubai. What's your view outside of your business? What's your view of the Middle East as an emerging market? Will it emerge, and are you optimistic?
Good question. The Middle East is a very interesting market to be in. It's moving, it's changing very fast. What's happening in Saudi, there's one country in the world you want to be now where change is happening, that is Saudi. And the Middle East itself is a fascinating market for what you can see. Is it a good market to play? Yes and no. Yes, from typically pricing perspective, the willingness to spend on services and so on is quite high. However, it's a small market, and it's a market where access to human resources is not fantastic. So these are challenges. It's small, and it's also quite fragmented. I'd love the market to be much more integrated than it is today, to create more opportunities. All the entrepreneurs that I'm dealing with, on a daily basis, that's one of the main struggles. If you want to get a license in Qatar and one in UAE and one in Saudi and Oman and whatever, it's a headache. And I think the logic of integration, of being more integrated from a business perspective, would make that market bigger. Saudi is the mammoth of the region. Yeah, still it's like 40 million people. It's not a massive market. Most European markets are significantly bigger than that. So if you were to regroup, I think that would make the market much more attractive. But still, there's a lot to learn here.
Amazing. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, imagine if there was something like a single currency or something like that just made things a lot more easier for trade across markets in the region. I think there's many, and there's a lot of conversations and, MOUs and things being done, cross-border trade. There's a lot of things that are happening in that space as well, which will hopefully improve, your ability to work with clients, but also companies' abilities to scale across the region.
Fully agreed.
Well, thanks a lot for sharing your businesses and your story. Really enjoyed listening to it. It's sometimes not an industry or a topic that people would naturally gravitate towards, but you explain it really well. And really enjoyed your hearing about your success over the years, and wishing you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Martin. Take care.